Hello, it's Fred Dinenage. Thank you very much indeed for joining me once again. We're talking at the moment about TV and radio, how you get in and what it's like when you do get in. And as I've said to you, the trick really is to be persistent, keep on at the companies you want to join until eventually they hopefully give in and let you in. And once you are in, you've got to decide what it is you want to do, whether you want to work on the production side, the writing side, the journalistic side, or whether you want to be a presenter. What you don't want to be is someone like me. Jack of all trades, master of none. I've done so many shows. I shouldn't have done quite so many really. But the one that stuck with me all these years is a show called How. Now, I first started doing that in 1966, would you believe? And still to this day, people walk up to me in the street and go, How? And I'm absolutely delighted. How was a wonderful, happy programme to work on. It was me to start with, Jack Hargreaves, the man who invented it, Bunty James, lovely lady, still with us, and John Miller, the mad scientist. It was a wonderful, happy, enjoyable show, but it did have its moments of danger and drama. For example, we did once on how can you not sink in the Dead Sea. The Dead Sea, of course, is full of salt, which makes it almost impossible to sink in it. You just float on the top. So we had a little bit of film of the Dead Sea, and in the studio they built this huge tank full of water and they put tons and tons and tons of salt in it. So I did this thing about how can you not sink in the Dead Sea, showed the film, then walked across to the tank. I got put in a harness, I was wearing my little Speedo shorts, put in the harness and gently lowered into the water. As soon as I hit the water, the harness split apart and I sank. I shouldn't have sunk, I should have floated, but unfortunately all of the salt had sunk to the bottom. I went straight down to the bottom and I got stuck in the salt. I could not move. I thought I was going to drown until a couple of stagehands, thank God, saw I was in trouble, came across and more or less dived in and pulled me out. So that was a dangerous how. Another one, we did a thing called how did the knights of old get on their chargers? How did they mount their chargers? Because the knights in days gone by had really heavy armour. So how, wearing all this incredibly heavy stuff, did they get on board their horses? Well, they used a kind of hoist, kind of crane, which was wrapped around them, lifted them up and gently plopped them on top of the horse. So they built in the studio a wooden horse and they got this little crane in there and they put me in all this incredibly heavy armour, wrapped it all around me, started to lift me up. Then there was a tremendous crash and a bang because the actual hoist broke. Dropped me to the ground wearing all this armour. A hell of a crash. Amazingly, I was completely unscathed. So a couple of near misses there on a wonderful programme. We did some really good stuff, really exciting stuff. We had at the time wrestling, professional wrestling was incredibly popular. We did a thing called how do you do the Boston Crab? Now the Boston Crab was the speciality of a really tough, hard little wrestler called Mick McManus. And what he would do is he'd get his opponent, he'd twist them round, he was quite a heavy lad, and he'd sort of lean and squat on their spine. So their legs would be coming up here and Mick would be squatting on their spine, almost breaking the spine. So the how was, how do you do a Boston Crab? In came Mick McManus to show me, wearing his leotard, and I had a leotard on as well and looked quite ridiculous. So I said to Mick before the start, I said, Mick, this isn't going to hurt me, is it? And he said, Fred, it's necessary to feel a little bit of pain for it to be authentic. And I did feel quite a lot of pain. Another how, which I really enjoyed, how do you play the drums, where we had a guy called Legend, Bill Legend, who was the drummer with T-Rex, Tyrannosaurus Rex. So some absolutely wonderful hows. Jack Hargreaves, the man who invented the programme, was probably the greatest broadcaster I've ever worked with. He was an incredible man. He did a show called Out of Town, a countryside programme which ran for years and years and years. Never used autocue, never used digiprompt, anything like that. Never had a script. He just kind of made it up as he went along. He was an incredible man. He was the only man, when he was working on House, the only man I've ever known in a studio allowed to smoke, because Jack had his pipe all the time. He said, oh, I don't really enjoy smoking, it's just a prop. People expect to see me with a pipe in my mouth. Absolute nonsense. Of course, he loved smoking a pipe. So he'd come in the studio with his pipe lit and puffing away. In his pocket, he'd have 3 or 4 more, all charged with tobacco and ready to go. He'd be puffing away and doing his howl. Then he'd think the pipe had gone out, he'd put it in his pocket. Then he'd light another one. Often the pipe in the pocket hadn't gone out, it was still smouldering, and suddenly I would look down from my little seat at the back of the set, higher up than Jack and John in front of me, and I'd notice smoke coming up, and Jack's pocket was on fire. And then, because often the show, How was live, you'd see a stagehand crawling across the ground, and when the camera wasn't on Jack, he'd have a jug of water in his hand, he'd pull Jack's pocket apart and pour the water in, put the pipe out. It happened a lot. And that's why Jack Hargreaves never ever had a jacket where all the pockets matched, because they'd all been set on fire. It was a wonderful show to work on. It really was a very, very happy show. And as I say, people to this day still remember it. So we'll talk more about getting in and persistence in getting into TV next time we talk. But for the moment, it's the old broadcaster saying, how for now.